Hey, it's Chris Fire.
Chris Bowling.
Brad Johnson here.
How are you,
Welcome
buddy?
back, Brad. You've had some vacation time. It's good
I
to have
went
you
to
back on Bottom
Alaska.
Line Thursday.
Last.
Yeah, highly recommend. But I wouldn't recommend this though. If I had to do it all over again, don't time a vacation towards the end of June because that's when all the legislators pass their last minute laws. And so then you come
There's
and you're
stuff.
trying to figure it out.
Welcome back. Yes.
Welcome back.
So what have we run into now as we're in July?
So apparently PBM reform has been a big deal in Iowa and Illinois, I've come to
Yes.
learn. So
Yes.
yeah, little tongue in cheek, but both states took on the issue.
Hmm.
Some similarities, some differences, and maybe it helped out. I'll just kind of hit some of the highlights that I see
Yeah,
between
I think that'd
Iowa
be
and
good.
Illinois, because a lot
That'd
of
be
our
great.
clients, straddle both. So Illinois passed a law. A lot of their provisions that hit employers appear to not go into effect until January.
Okay.
Okay.
But Iowa's law, it appears, goes into effect July 1st, which is already passed. But
Yes.
um,
Yes.
still waiting on details from the Illinois or the Iowa Insurance Department on that. But some similarities here. Both are really attacking the concept of spread pricing, meaning what they charge a
Yes.
client to fill a drug versus what they ultimately pay the pharmacy for, and that difference often is profit kept by the PBM. Both states are banning that. Both
Yes.
states are requiring rebates be passed through 100% uh, to the employer or health plan. And I think even the Illinois one, it even mentioned it could be passed on to the employee. I didn't see that in Iowa, but
Wow.
That'd be
Okay.
more
wonderful.
digging. Um, Patient steering. This one's kind of interesting, and I think a big part of both states felt a concern that the smaller independent pharmacies were closing at a fast rate. So they
Absolutely.
wanted to
Yep.
make sure the PBMs weren't steering them to their owned pharmacies, which
Yep.
would be typically chains rather than smaller independents. And so both ban PBMs from doing that. Um, some interesting things too, like mail order restrictions. Illinois didn't have any mail order restrictions, but in Iowa, you can't mandate mail order use. So I'm thinking about this a little
Hmm.
further. Think about your specialty drugs. And I don't know
Oh,
the answer to this, but here's where my mind went. Think about specialty drugs that have to be filled through, let's say, CVS only, or pick your pharmacy. Will
Yes.
that be allowed? Because technically that comes through the mail. I don't know.
Yes.
and
So
Yeah.
most PBMs have a specialty pharmacy or a company that they work with because, that's what they're good at. And you are correct. They have to come in dry,
Yep.
dry store, or I should say cold storage. And so,
Huh.
typical politicians passing laws that they don't totally understand how healthcare works would not be the first time this has happened, right, Brad? That they pass a law that don't totally
I
understand.
remember something about
Remember
that.
something about that. But I mean, a lot of good things, a lot of challenging things. I mean, I do have a problem, and all of our big carriers steer people into a big box pharmacy. Um, we've seen the Blues
Preferred
do
and
it.
non-preferred. Yep.
We've seen UHC do it. I am a fan of not doing that. I actually despise the big box pharmacies as I believe that every time that we look at cost, Brad, they're the most expensive.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
is that because of the spread?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we don't really know why. We just see the data. Well, Brad, you talked a little bit about the rebates too. We see with our self-funded clients that, we have a PBM that passes rebates back, or there's a rebate credit for self-funded, but that's not happening fully insured. So I'm
yeah,
wondering as well, is this just going to be a fully insured mandate because they're state mandates and ERISA preempts that for our self-funded plans to be determined, I'm sure. How much of
yeah,
this actually
definitely.
applies to our self-funded?
how much
I was thinking the same thing. The ERISA preemption is probably a very powerful argument if you're an employer that's self-funded and just feels that, hey, these are
Yeah.
going against what the states can really do. So, but that's going to be in the courts and that'll take some time. So it could be a situation where they have to adjust to the law and then later change back to if they're successful. I really don't know. That's a great
Do
lead.
I dare say we have a part two at some point in the future?
I think part two through part 10 is probably
Probably more likely,
likely.
yes.
so
No,
a
appreciate the summary.
yeah, so real quick, a Iowa judge has has now blocked the Iowa PBM from going through, or this change going through. I thought I read that yesterday.
So it's just for those named in the lawsuit or that actually
Ah,
took it up. So unless you're on that list, it
It
apparently
applies to
applies to
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. More
What
to
do you
come.
think?
But Brad,
More to
thanks for the
come.
summary. This was good.
All
You're
right,
welcome.
everybody wants to stop talking about it. Goodbye.
See you.
We'll
Bye.
see.